All right, so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into something pretty fascinating. We're diving into the world of gold, but not like the gold you wear. We're going to be talking about gold as like a major player in global finance and how it might be challenging the dollar's dominance. Our guide for this deep dive is a recent article from The Economist. So remember when gold was considered a little outdated? Like central banks were trading it for dollars. Investors weren't really interested, and it felt kind of like, a relic of the past. Well, things have changed dramatically. Gold is making a serious comeback. Since late 2023, the price of gold has surged by a third, reaching a record high of almost $2,750 per ounce. This isn't just like a minor fluctuation. It's a significant jump. That's turning heads in the financial world. What's driving this resurgence? Well, it's a mix of global anxieties, including war, inflation, and government spending. That seems to have no limits. But here's the really intriguing part. Central banks are leading this gold rush. They're accumulating hundreds of tons of gold, which is a significant move, considering they manage
nations' financial reserves. They don't make these decisions lightly. To put this into perspective, gold now makes up a substantial 11% of central banks' reserves, a notable increase from the Tosco Anan, just 6% back in 2008. This shift indicates a move away from relying solely on the dollar, almost like a quiet rebellion against its long-held power. And I might be wondering why there's this sudden shift away from the dollar, which has been the world's leading reserve currency for such a long time. But the global landscape is changing, and some countries are becoming uneasy about depending entirely on the dollar. This shift gained momentum after Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the subsequent sanctions imposed by the U.S. and its allies. These sanctions served as a wake-up call for many countries, especially those who fear they might find themselves in a similar situation in the future. They highlighted the vulnerability of over-reliance on the dollar. Imagine a country holding a large portion of its reserves in dollars, and suddenly those dollars become frozen and inaccessible due to geopolitical conflicts. This is precisely what happened to Russia, with billions of its assets frozen abroad. This situation sent ripples of concern throughout the global financial system. So what are countries like China, India, and Turkey doing? They're seeking alternatives, diversifying their reserves, and lessening their dependence on the dollar. And guess what plays a key role in this strategy? You guessed it, gold. Remember how central banks are purchasing physical gold bars and transporting them to their holds. This isn't just about safeguarding a valuable asset. It's about taking control, ensuring their reserves are beyond the reach of potential sanctions or economic warfare. It's like creating a safety net in a world that feels increasingly uncertain. But the move away from the dollar goes beyond just buying gold. Countries are actively exploring other ways to bypass the dollar's dominance. There's a notable surge in using national currencies for trade. For instance, China's currency, the Yuan, is increasingly being used in international transactions. This trend points toward a future where the dollar might not be the only major player in global trade. Then we have the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. They're actively developing alternative payment systems that would circumvent the
current dollar-centric system. Imagine like a parallel financial universe where the dollar isn't the sole power broker. And here's where things get even more intriguing. The Bank for International Settlements, or BIAS, is already working on a system that could support these alternative transactions. While the BIAS isn't specifically designing this for the BRICS, their system could easily become a blueprint for a new global financial order, one where the dollar's influence might be significantly less potent. So, are we witnessing the end of the dollar's reign as the world's reserve currency? That's the million-dollar question. While concerns about the dollar's future are certainly valid, it's important to remember that, for now, it remains the most widely accepted and used currency globally. No other currency comes close to its reach. And when we look at what central banks are doing, they're turning to gold as a safety measure, not the yuan or any other currency. The alternative systems being developed also face significant challenges, building trust and cooperation among nations, especially those within TH. Diverse political and economic interests is a complex task. And let's not forget that the dollar still offers
some significant advantages, such as greater purchasing power and lower borrowing costs. Now, let's zoom in on central banks and their gold buying spree. It's important to understand that. They aren't a monolithic entity. They have diverse motivations, perspectives, and levels of comfort. When it comes to relying on the dollar, some are driven by a very real fear of global instability. They're looking at war, inflation, and political turmoil. And they're thinking, we need a safe haven, something that is historically held its value, something that can't be easily manipulated by any single government. That's where gold comes into play. It's seen as the ultimate insurance policy against a world that feels increasingly volatile. But then you have countries like China, India, and Turkey, who are taking a more strategic approach. They've been uncomfortable with the dollar's dominance for a while. They view it as a tool for the U.S. to exert its power on the global stage. And they're not entirely wrong. The ability to impose sanctions, freeze assets, and effectively cut off a country from the global financial system gives the U.S. a significant amount of power. So these countries are asking,
How can we level the playing field? How can we reduce our vulnerability to American pressure? And you guessed it, gold is part of the answer. By increasing their gold reserves, they're not just hedging against risk. They're building a financial fortress, a safeguard against potential economic warfare. They're essentially saying, we're not going to be pawns in your game anymore. We're going to play by our own rules. This shift toward gold, this desire for greater financial independence, is part of a larger trend, the gradual decline of the dollar's power. While some might argue that the dollar is still king, the reality is that its dominance is facing real challenges. We've been exploring some pretty significant shifts in the world of global finance, haven't we? Countries are diversifying their reserves. Gold is experiencing a resurgence, and new pathways to financial independence are emerging. So let's connect the dots and consider what this all really means, the rise of gold. And the pursuit of alternatives to the dollar signal a fundamental change in the global power balance. For decades, the U.S. has held a unique position of economic and financial dominance. The dollar has been the unquestioned leader, the driving force behind international trade and finance. But that era is evolving. We're transitioning towards a multipolar world where power is distributed more evenly among nations. This shift has implications that extend beyond economics, reaching into the realm of geopolitics. A weaker dollar translates to a less influential America. It signifies a world where the U.S. might not be able to dictate terms as easily or use its financial strength to achieve its foreign policy objectives. It points towards a more intricate and less predictable global landscape. So how does this relate to you? Well, it underscores the importance of diversification, not just in your investment portfolio, but also how you view the global financial system. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, especially if that basket is heavily tied to a single currency. Explore alternative investments. Consider assets like gold, and stay informed about the evolving dynamics of global finance. Knowledge is power, and in a world filled with uncertainty, being informed can give you a real advantage. But here's a crucial point. The future isn't set in stone. While the dollar's dominance might be waning, it's still a powerful force. The alternative systems being developed might flourish, or they might struggle. The BRICS nations might establish a new financial order, or they might face internal divisions that hinder their progress. The world is in a state of flux. Making predictions, a risky endeavor. But one thing is certain, gold is back in the spotlight. It's a tangible asset, a store of value, and a symbol of financial sovereignty. In a world increasingly cautious about relying on a single currency, gold is poised to play a more significant role in shaping the future of global power. As we conclude our deep dive into this complex landscape, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder. In a world where financial warfare is becoming more prevalent, where trust in traditional institutions is eroding, and where long-held certainties are crumbling, what will be the new measures of power and influence? Will gold emerge as the ultimate safe haven? Will alternative currencies reshape the global financial system? And what role will you play in this evolving landscape? These are questions worth exploring. The answers might not be readily apparent, but the journey of discovery is what makes it all so fascinating. Keep diving deep, keep questioning, and keep seeking knowledge. This is a deep dive, signing off.